Why do I not deserve Casterly Rock, Father? And we get one of Charles Dance's best acted scenes in the show. You ask that? You who killed your mother to come into the world?
What up, and welcome to another episode of Brotherhood Without Manners, your favorite full spoiler reread podcast of George R.R. Martin's A Song of Ice and Fire series. I'm Nate, joining me as always, my co-host and brother, Zach.
Yo.
That's this guy.
Yo.
We are reading Storm of Swords.
Yo. Oh, yeah.
You done yoing?
Mm-hmm.
You're a yo-yo.
We are reading Storm of Swords, and we are also full spoiler, so if you haven't joined us before, that's your warning.
Now we're going to talk about it.
That's what I got for you. There you go.
Yeah,
if you have joined, joined us before, welcome back. Thanks for coming back and putting up with Nate's bullshit like I do on a daily basis. It is a tough job, but someone's got to shoulder it. Last episode, we were reading Arya 1.
Yeah. Her first chapter of Storm of Swords, which we're obviously just starting Storm of Swords, so there's going to be a lot of first chapters for people.
That's the way books work.
And so it picked up again, just like the last few chapters, right where her last point of view ended, with her leaving Harrenhal and making her way north. She was accompanied by her good pals Hot Pie and Gendry. They were surprised to learn she could read a map, which she had stolen from Roose Bolton, and they make their way north. She's fearing that they're being chased by the Bloody Mummers or somebody sent by Roose Bolton, so it's just a fucking wild dash through the woods, across streams and rivers and hills and murky bogs. I don't fucking know. All sorts of shit there through the Riverlands.
But they have a protector circling them in Nymeria in the Wolf Pack, and Arya does some of her very first warging into Nymeria at the end of that chapter, where she kills the Bloody Mummers who are indeed following them, and exults in it, and just loves ripping that dude's arm off and sending the blood scattering everywhere. And it's vicious, and it's scary, and it's exactly what we come to expect from Arya.
So we also do have to remember that part of that is the savagery of the wolf itself that she's inhabiting. But this is not Arya's episode. And so this episode we're reading Tyrion. Tyrion 1. And last we left Tyrion, he was asleep in his bedroom. Well, not his bedroom, but a bedroom that he had been moved to after the Battle of Blackwater.
Tyrion basically went from, like, just living it up, living the high life, and then he was just thrown into some trap house somewhere where it's dank, it's musty, and he's getting zero recognition for his part in the Battle of Blackwater. You know, we know that he got his face cut off, basically, by Sir Meryn Trant.
Yeah, he was being treated by Maester Balabar. And he didn't want any of that, because Balabar was keeping him heavily sedated, where he couldn't do shit. I want to be
sedated.
Right. And he fired him and had Maester Franken brought in instead, and began his recovery process. He did get to speak with Pod, who confirmed that Mandy Moore did sing her last solo on the Bridge of Boats, and was dead because of Pod.
Yeah.
So he made some demands, wanted to see Bronn, wanted to see Sir Jacelyn Bywater, and he passed out.
Deuce. Back into dreamy dreamland. We pick up Tyrion 1, Storm of Swords, and Tyrion is awoken by the old creaky hinges of his door opening. And he calls out, what? Because he's still feverish, he's still weak, and he has absolutely no notion of time or how long he's been asleep. And it is Bronn entering, and
it takes a few minutes for him to realize that.
Right.
And so he, for a second, worries, shit, Cersei probably sent someone to fucking kill me. I'm dead.
Bronn, being Bronn, asks if Tyrion cut himself shaving. And Tyrion says he's with an awful big razor. And Tyrion then notes that Bronn is just fucking decked out in some sick-ass finery. Fine boots, fine cape, fine chain, all this dapper stuff. He now has his own sigil, a flaming chain, green, on a smoke-gray field. By your lord father's command, imp, I'm Sir Bronn of the Blackwater now.
And he says that that's courtesy of Tywin Lannister.
By his command.
So, Tyrion immediately is like, dude, I was the one that I promised to give you that.
I was gonna knight you.
It's because I promised that you were there to get that. That's my thing.
Tyrion asks if it was his father who knighted him himself, but Bronn was like, no, we were knighted in Sansa's last chapter in Clash of Kings. Like, it's all good.
That's what he said.
It's exactly
verbatim.
What he said. No, he was knighted by the 3 Kingsguard, and it took all day because there was only 3, and
there was 5,000 or some shit.
Yeah, 500
like that.
new knights made that day, some bullshit like that.
So what surprises me about all of that is during that chapter, Sansa's they had to do their walk of atonement from the sept to the fucking the throne room.
The keep, yeah.
And didn't they do it barefoot?
Mm-hmm.
I just don't see Bronn willing to fucking deal with that.
I mean, why not?
I guess it is a knighthood, and
right.
He's going to get lands and money, so it'd be stupid not to.
I mean, just to walk barefoot across the city?
And of all people, he's probably more than capable of... Yeah, all right.
Dealing with walking barefoot?
Yep.
Yeah, at the mention of there being only 3 white cloaks, Tyrion is like, haha, I kind of figured. All right, who else is gone besides Sir Mandon? And Bronn tells him, the Hound, not dead, only gone. Rumors say that he turned craven and that you led a sortie in his name. And Tyrion's like, yeah, not one of my better notions.
Now,
but...
that there surprises me, that because he's not getting the recognition he deserves or wants, which I have a little bit to say about that. But if they're out there saying that he led the sortie instead of, it's just crazy to me that the people would be like, wait, the Hound ran, but Tyrion Lannister, the imp, went out and fucking charged into this battle. Why would they not? I mean,
it's not because it's not the small folk. It's the soldiers who saw it. The soldiers have no fucking sway. Yeah, sure. I'm sure there's, if any of them survived, there's quite a few soldiers in the City Watch who are like, yeah, the imp fucking went out there and handled some shit. It's the small folk and the High Lords that are the opinions that are currently fucking Tyrion over, and that's where he's looking. He's as you said, you kind of touched on.
Yeah, where's
He's
Jacelyn
not.
Bywater?
He's not focusing on the fact that I'm getting some clout as leading a sortie. It's I'm not getting the clout I want from my father, from the small.
Right.
I'm not the savior of the city that I apparently thought I was going to be. So Tyrion waves Bronn over to a chair and says that his sister basically thinks him a mushroom, has been keeping him in the dark and feeding him shit. And Pod isn't necessarily the most reliable informant getting information for him, as Tyrion doesn't quite understand how someone, and it's a later quote, but he doesn't understand how someone so capable in battle can be so confused all the time everywhere else. And I just love that description of Pod.
I think it's funny because technically it was very similar for Tyrion in the battle because he got that clarity as well, that battle clarity. It just kind of comes, but otherwise Pod's he's just a simple, trying to do his best kind of guy.
But Tyrion then, to kind of confirm it, says that he had sent Pod to fetch Sir Jacelyn, and Pod came back and reported him dead. And Bronn's like, yeah, that's true. Him and thousands more. And Tyrion wants to know how. And we learn...
Dude,
this is where Tyrion learns that during the battle, Cersei had recalled Joffrey.
Right.
She sent the Kettle Blacks down to fetch him back to the Red Keep.
And that as soon as he left, all the City Watch were like, yeah, fuck this, bye. So Bywater was like, yo, stop. We need to protect the city. And he was just about to have them turned around and going back to their posts when somebody caught him in the neck with a fucking arrow.
Put an arrow through his neck, and then after that, he wasn't so intimidating. They dragged him off his horse and killed him. And Tyrion just thinks, well, that's another debt to lay at Cersei's door. That was the one thing, recalling Joffrey, that even Lancel was fighting with Cersei about.
Right.
Do not do this. It is detrimental, and it got Jacelyn Bywater killed.
And he even asks, was Joffrey hurt? Was he in danger any more so than anybody else?
Yeah, no, not more so than anyone else.
Nothing. And, Tyrion's pissed.
Yeah. So he asks who it is that leads the Gold Cloaks now, and we learn that Tywin has appointed Sir Adam Marbrand to the job, which Tyrion thinks exactly as he had thought with Jacelyn, that he's a man people will follow, so it was a pretty shrewd decision by his father. And he also thinks, I have lost the City Watch.
Right. And so he moves right on to the next topic, which is asking about the clansmen.
Shagga and the
Clansmen. Where's my motherfucking clansmen?
Shagga has taken a liking to the Kingswood and therefore remains there with his clansmen. Timett has led the burned men home with all of their plunder taken from Stannis' camp. And Chella and a dozen Black-Ears had turned up at the river gate, but were chased off by your father's red cloaks while the city folk threw dung and cheered.
So I had this fun daydreaming thought process earlier after I was reading this chapter about Shagga in the Kingswood there, and just thinking of like 1,000 years, because they're in George, he talks about the golden age 10,000 years ago, and this happened 1,000 years ago, and so I just think like 1,000 years in the future from then, in the Kingswood, there's going to be these clansmen that are descendants of these Shagga and the what are they, the Black-Ears, the Stone Crows.
I have to believe that that's not going to be allowed to stand for long.
No, I mean, I agree that Cersei would be the one. They may even get
recall,
routed
right,
out. I
that's
feel
what
like I recall
I
that
would
happening.
think that would happen in the books.
I just think it would be a neat concept, kind of like how you've got the clansmen up in the north who stay up in their little hovels and shit, and then you've got the clansmen there in the Eyrie with that, and then like they keep migrating further and further south.
Strategically, it's not a bad idea.
No,
if Tywin and Cersei were smart, they would establish a continued agreement with Shagga.
You guys play your part in there. Do what
you live there,
do.
turn away outsiders, basically, make the woods dangerous for anyone that's not a King's Landinger, and you can stay there, sure. But again, Tyrion's just like, son of a bitch. He calls the King's Landingers ingrates, thinking that the Black-Ears died for them in the Battle of Blackwater. They fought for you. And Tyrion then thinks while he was laying drugged and dreaming, his own blood was pulling his claws out, one by one, dethroning a kitty cat. Or declawing a kitty cat and dethroning
I don't know why it's so neat, though, that he's making that analogy when he keeps bringing up, like, the cat's paws coming to kill him, and then mentioning, his claws being pulled out that way. I guess the lion, he's the big cat,
it's
but like
the symbolism.
It's
they're taking away his claws. He's got no weapons to fight with now.
Yeah. So next he says that it's been nigh time. Get a hold of Cersei. Make sure she's releasing Elia. She needs to be set free.
Elia was already freed 8 or 9 days ago after the whipping, and Tyrion's like, the whipping? And Bronn says, yeah, they tied her to a post, scourged her, and sent her off, naked and bloody.
I do like that his first thought is, she was learning to read,
dude.
She
was learning how to read.
What the fuck's wrong with you people? She was just learning to read. And then it starts kind of clicking for him that he used her as a veil. She was innocent. Right. She didn't do anything wrong. She protected him. He used her as a fucking shield.
Yeah, and didn't have any concern for the consequences, what might fall on her. And now
he's
realizing they're both in the midst of those. And his thoughts also go to the fact that he had promised to do to Tommen whatever was done to Elia. But how could he scourge an 8-year-old boy? And yet if he doesn't, Cersei wins. And this is where Bronn points out, you don't have Tommen. Once Ironhand died, the Queen sent the Kettleblacks to fetch him from Rosby, and no one remaining there had the balls to stand up to them and say no. So Cersei has Tommen back here again.
Once again, he's got another fucking rug yanked out from under him.
But he's slightly relieved with this one because he likes Tommen. He doesn't want to have to whip the boy.
Right, he's glad about that, but he is also upset that why the fuck did the Kettleblacks go?
They're supposed to be ours. Yeah.
Like, the fuck?
And Bronn tells him, they were ours when we were able to match what they were being paid penny for penny. Your sister's up the stakes. She gave them knighthood. She's given them a ton of gold. Like, how are we supposed to compete with that? And Tyrion and I liked this line, I thought I won the bloody battle. Is this what victory tastes like? And it's just, because everything's fun. He's losing everything. All his clansmen, and soon here, Bronn is got a foot out the door.
Well, that's what's so interesting is we watched, obviously, and we talked about it a ton, the build-up of Tyrion in Clash of Kings. All these well-laid-out plans, they pretty much worked as well as they were expected, and now we've got, Tywin at the end is just going to also flip the script on everything. All these accomplishments you did? Nope, Cersei did that.
Right.
Nope, this person did that. Nope, that wasn't you, it was them. And he loses everything. Everything.
Talk turns to
Almost.
Renly's ghost and of how Stannis fled. And of Robb making his way down to Duskendale.
Yeah, so he thinks on those points each briefly about how he's jealous of Renly's ghost. He doesn't like that Renly is getting more
eclipsed,
recognition.
yeah.
And then he mentions that Stannis was able to escape because the Lyseni boats were outside of the Battle of Bridges and outside the chain.
It said men were killing each other in a rush to get on those boats.
Right.
That there was such a panic on the river. But yeah, that's
Crazy.
how Stannis fled.
And then Robb Stark, technically, Bronn's a little off with this information. He says that he's headed to Duskendale to do something, but he doesn't realize that Robb's not actually part of that contingent.
Well, that's what even Tywin says too, though.
But Tywin does also mention that it's Robert Glover and
right. The other one.
Yeah,
Tallheart.
Yeah. He says that it's those guys.
Yeah, not Robb Stark himself.
Right,
yeah.
right. But that's it.
But Bronn says that he has half a mind to accompany Randall Tarley, who is said to pay well, and you know what the hell? It's not going to be too hard. Like it's just going to be a little routing out.
Right.
Like,
and this is, I think, the last straw for Tyrion.
It is.
It's just that, like, no, you're going to stay here. You're the head of the Hand's guard, and he's like, I'm not anymore, dude. You're not fucking listening. You're not the Hand.
Yeah.
Your dad is.
And he has his own guard, and I ain't a part of that. And Tyrion asks, oh, so you've lost your taste for gold? And Bronn says it's not bloody likely. And Tyrion... I don't really think it's like a mandate. Like, he's not telling him this is what he wants him to do, but I think it is also. He basically says he wants to know everything there is to know about Mandon Moore. And Bronn's like, what more? Like, he was a fucking weird-eyed, dead-eyed motherfucker
who wore a white cloak.
What more do you need to know? And Tyrion said, everything. I need to know everything.
To start with.
To make sure that I can confirm he is Cersei's catspaw, that
Right.
Cersei put him up to it. And so he's like, all right, yeah, no, it's past time I get out of this bed. Help me up. Get me up.
Right,
and
yeah, and so while he's doing that, he asks about Marjorie Tyrell. And Bronn says she hasn't arrived at the city. She's on her way up the Rose Road, the Flower Road, the fucking... that road. Rose Road. And that she has been sending forward food every single day. Hundreds of fucking, like, carts of food.
Yep.
For all the people.
Just giving it away.
Yo, she's being built up so fucking huge here. Like, and as great as a fucking job Natalie Dormer did...
The city is already in love with her. And this is where Bronn also says that any Tyrells currently in the city don't pay for drinks or food, and women absolutely swoon for any peach-fuzzed-faced boy with a golden rose sewn over his breast.
Yeah, because all the Highgarden boys are walking around with the sigil on their chest.
And after Blackwater...
people are eating it up.
And Tyrion just thinks they spit on me and buy drinks for the Tyrells. So he calls for Pod. And he thinks here he's feeling weak, and weakness brings out his shame, and shame brings out his anger. And so he just starts shouting for Pod, get in here, Pod, where the fuck are you? And Pod comes running in, and he tells him to get his clothes, and Pod's confused at the word clothes, and so Tyrion breaks it down for him, and this is where he thinks that how can a boy so clear in battle be so confused every other moment in time?
So I want to real quick stop this and start talking about Tyrion and this part of the chapter before we head into like where he goes to meet with his father. I feel like he's very fucking entitled, first of all, obviously, yeah. And we already know that, but if he was just grateful for what he's fucking done, like, oh shit, we won. Yeah, the Tyrells are on our side. They're fucking heroes here. We've got food for the city that was starving. If he went into his father's thing and was like, yo, we fucking did it. And his father was like, yeah, clever trick with the chain and nice job with the... He probably wouldn't get that. But
Tywin is straight up pissed that he threatened Tommen and Joffrey.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, that, and that's the weird thing for me, that Tywin...
But again, I think that if he went in there with that, Tyrion was like, yo, you told me that a good threat is what's needed. I would never hurt... That's the only issue with all this is the whore. Is Elijah and...
But Tyrion was never going to wake up grateful because he had to wake up at all.
Oh, absolutely. And
he,
that's
like, literally, he was betrayed by his family, so he's absolutely, I think, entitled to this anger he's feeling.
Oh, towards them,
like,
definitely.
I don't think... I mean, obviously, it's just privilege here, but...
It's almost funny, though, that if he accepted the situation, that, like, obviously that's why he's Tyrion, is he's not going to do that. But he technically is walking out of this whole deal with the North. Like, he is the warden of the fucking North. He gets to rule the North with all this
That
shit.
hasn't been decided yet.
No, not yet, obviously. But that's what it is. Like, you're bitching that you can't have Casterly Rock and be the warden of the West.
Well, right, but that's...
I get that that's your birthright, and that's what you want.
Right. That's his family.
You're still getting to be the warden of the North, and which is significantly larger.
Right, but this chapter, in the end conversation specifically, is the reveal of why Tyrion was doing all this. It was to get his father's affection, to get his father to say, you have done as good as Jaime, you are entitled to that birthright, because Jaime can't have it. And that's what that whole paragraph about Jaime, when he took the fucking White Cloak, forbode, he couldn't have a wife, he couldn't have children, he can't have lands or titles. Casterly Rock, by all rights, should go to fucking Tyrion.
100%.
He thought proving himself as a military commander here,
and a fighter,
which he did, would give him that. And so I can't blame Tyrion in a single iota.
I mean, I don't. I'm not saying that. I mean,
again,
what I'm saying.
The privilege of him is there. He wants to be the savior of the city, and it's, you know, it is a. There's no I in team, like, and Tywin even kind of says, and like, you know, the small folk are saying it was my victory when I hit.
Well, let's get back into, like, yeah, obviously it was more of a, I don't think he is wrong in his feelings of trying to get some validation from
but
his
he's
father.
Angry.
But
he's
absolutely.
And he even thinks it himself, where he's pissed here, so he starts making decisions that he knows aren't
and so
the
I guess
way he should go.
Mainly I'm drawing attention to even the most usually kind of well off, like, characters that are trying to do good for the small folk, and, you know, he was trying to do good for the city and keep as many people alive. How privileged they are still.
Right.
He's going to be offered the entire North. Fuck that. Fuck you. Fuck my family. And I get it. Like, I'm not doubting that. But anyway, yeah, they get him dressed. All three of Podrick, Bronn, and Tyrion.
It's actually interesting. It's his shoulder wound that's the worst one, because the mail bent back into the wound.
With the arrow in it and shit.
And after he gets dressed, he has just a quick cup of dream wine with just enough poppy to make his wounds bearable. And with a walking stick in hand, they descend. Tyrion's got one hand on the walking stick, the other on Pod's shoulder. And on the way down the stairs, they pass a serving girl, whose eyes go wide and white at the sight of Tyrion. And he just thinks, that's right, the dwarf has risen from the dead, and he's uglier than ever. Run and tell your friends.
Do we know any serving girls that might be a bit panicked? Like, could this be like somebody?
Oh, this is one of Cersei's, and it's just, oh shit, he's up and moving. Like, I need to go tell Cersei now. Like, that's all it is, because Cersei's such a bitch to her serving informants and such. Yeah, that I absolutely believe this is just one of Cersei's, and they're like, oh, he's up. So they continue on. And
they make their way outside of the holdfast, Maegor's holdfast, which is where he was. He was in the, if you remember from his last chapter, they moved him up above the chambers where they had Cersei in them during the battle, where they held up the ballroom. That's it. And so he was in a room above there. So as they're leaving, he starts describing the castle a bit and how the holdfast is like a castle within a fucking castle, because it's got a dry moat just outside of its edges, and he wants to get into the Red Keep. But the drawbridge is up. Right. And
as it is normally.
And Meryn Trant says that it's commanded right now that this stays up by Cersei at night. So fuck off.
Yeah, the queen's asleep. I'm here to meet with my father. And Tyrion says that there's just magic in the name of Lord Tywin Lannister, because Sir Meryn grunted the command and down came the drawbridge.
Yep. And as he goes in, he does have a brief pass with Osmond Kettleblack, who they just quickly exchange. Like, he's like, "Oh, you're alive.
You're feeling better, yeah."
Yeah, fuck you is basically the response he wants to give, and he just kind of keeps going on.
They reach the Serpentine steps, and Tyrion realizes, to his absolute disdain, that he's not going to be able to climb these stairs himself. So He swallows his dignity and asks one Sir Bronn of the Blackwater to carry him up the stairs, hoping against hope that at this hour there's no one around to see him being carried like a babe in a strong man's arms. But they get to the top, and the outer ward they see is filled with tents and pavilions. And we get a little bit of Pod's sigil and name recollection. He says these are Tyrell, Redwine, and what's the other house? Rowan men that are all here for the wedding. The city is full the fuck up, which we'll get, Tywin will actually say as well. The city's starting to fill up already because of the royal wedding. And so that's what this is. This is just where inns are all full and taverns, so this is where some of them have set up.
So they pass 2 Lannister guards on their way inside of the Tower of the Hand, and Tyrion recognizes them. They don't exchange words, and on their way up, they run into Sir Adam Marbrand himself.
Yeah.
And Marbrand is like, oh shit, what up, dog? And you going up to see your pops? Because I just left him pretty fucking pissed. How do you like me now, bitch? He's upset because the city guard is massive right now. Yeah. Because of all the recruiting.
Cersei won't let him dismiss any. Right. And Tyrion notes that. Oh, you're still concerned, even though we won the battle. But yeah.
Tywin also wants to utilize them in the search for Tyrick Lannister, who was known as the wet nurse, and he married the little baby who was the last of her name in line and all that, and so to carry on the name and all that.
Tyrick went missing during the bread riots, and Tyrion himself spent some time looking into it. Lord Jacelyn Bywater spent some time looking into it.
And yeah, basically, I mean, that's pretty unknown stuff. Even through feasts, we don't get much more than Jaime speculates that Varys has something to do with it.
And that's what Bronn brings up here. He says he's feeding the worms. Like, both Iron Hand and the eunuch looked for him and couldn't find him. So you're fucked, right? If Varys can't find him, in quotes, then no one can. But maybe Varys did snatch him out of the city.
For those interested, the theory is that because Varys was not present at the bread riots or at the docks during Myrcella's saying goodbye party, that Varys took Tyrek or set up the riots so that they could take Tyrek, when really the whole purpose was because he was Robert's squire. He had information that Varys did not want getting loose.
Right.
Anyway.
Should be fun thread to see pop up again.
Yeah, so otherwise, Tyrion's like, all right, well, I'm going to go see my father. Is he in his solar? And he's like, yeah. He's like, I know the way. Thinking, my fucking solar.
Yeah.
It's my goddamn bedroom, bitch.
So they get up there, and they enter, and they find Tywin sitting by the window, writing by an oil lantern, and he puts his quill down and just, Tyrion, as they enter, and Tyrion immediately knows something's wrong.
Dude, I love that he can just like that. Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
And so Tywin asks Bronn and Sir Bronn and Podrick, why don't you wait without while my son and I discuss? And they do. They leave.
In this little spot right here, it said that Bronn gave Tywin a look that was insolent.
Yeah.
Is that just because he's being dismissed?
Oh, I think so.
Fuck.
He's expecting to be privy.
But let me say this. Who the fuck in Westeros has the gall to look at Tywin with such insolence?
Bronn.
It's like, that's just crazy. Everybody is scared of that motherfucker. To even, like, whisper his name in bad fucking tones.
Yeah.
And he's just like, no, fuck you, bitch. I'll walk out of here, but I'm going to do it slow, motherfucker.
Tyrion wonders what lies Cersei told Tywin to... Because the chill in the air is just palpable to him. And Tyrion says that... they begin talking about, where Tyrion's staying and his injury, and Tyrion...
Yeah, because Tyrion's like, yeah, it's funny. I happen to wake up in a little tiny fucking cell, and Tywin's like, yo, we've got everybody in the goddamn country in here for the wedding. It's tight. We'll get you accommodations that are more suited to you once it's cleared up and things have settled down a bit. Fucking relax.
Yeah, the city's full for the wedding. They go back and forth.
Well, he says here, because Tywin says, or Tyrion asks, when is the wedding?
Yep.
Like, when the fuck is it? And Tywin's like, it's on the first day of the new year.
Which also happens to be the first day of the new century.
I've never picked that up before, that the wedding happened on the first day of the new century.
Do you think the comet was heralding in the new century?
I mean, it might not be that it was heralding it in, but it could just be that once every fucking 100 years.
Right. Well, that's what I mean. If we're in a planetoid, I don't know the actual terminology for it, but the astrological, there's a planetoid system. Maybe it is every 1,000, 2,000. I don't know what century they're entering here. Right. So
every so many years, 300, 600.
That seems like a oddly important
note, date,
significant. Like you would think that a lot of people would be giving more mystical
thoughts towards
the turn of the century.
And he says it's the dawn of a new era, and Tyrion thinks a Lannister
era. Yeah. Fucking A. They go back and forth a bit, and
about the Meisters, and
Tyrion asks, "Shouldn't you be off dealing with the Starks?" And this is where Tywin again confirms that he's heading down to Duskendale, and Randall Tarley's gonna go handle it, and the Mountain will be heading up the King's Road to cut off the Lord Glovet's reserve so that they split the army. And Tyrion's like, there's nothing in Duskendale that Robb Stark could want. Has he finally blundered? Like, what the fuck is that about? But continues on, and Tywin asks what it is. Tyrion, what do you want, Tyrion? Are you just here to bitch? And Tyrion says, a little fucking gratitude would be nice. And Tywin's like, only mummers and trained monkeys need applause.
Yeah,
You did as you were commanded. You got something?
I have a ton, that I was going to go over. Because he mentions what could possibly back when he was saying... Fuck, let me pull it back. Where are we going here? So it was shortly after he was talking about Cersei and not visiting his bed, and who gives a shit about that because she's busy. But he says, he's like, what the fuck possibly possessed you to go charging out the way you did? And he says, our city gates were under attack by a battering ram. But if it were Jaime, you'd have called it valor.
Yeah.
Like, why is it madness for me? And he tells him, well, Jaime wouldn't have removed his helm. But, it wasn't so plain and simple. I'm pretty sure it got bashed and was, fucking him up, too, as well. He didn't make a stupid decision.
Right. That's
and so
the bias here.
Right,
yeah.
And I just think it's so... I just like to point out those, all these things.
Right, I think this is coming from a place of, well, you should have anticipated that I was coming, and so, you shouldn't have been out there type thing. I think it's, if they nitty-grittied this argument, and Tyrion was like, how the fuck is my helmet falling off?
Right.
I'm sure Jaime's gotten his helmet knocked off in a battle or two. But, when he was captured in the fucking Kingswood, he wasn't brought up wearing a helmet.
Exactly.
So, And I think if they got down to the nitty-gritty of it, what it would be is, Tywin would have told Jaime that he would have gotten word to Jaime if Jaime was in Tyrion's position. I'm coming to attack.
Right.
And because it was Tyrion,
Absolutely.
he didn't do that. And
he
so
it
was, you were expected to anticipate what I was doing, and because you didn't, it's madness what you did.
Right. And then Tywin does ask him if he at least killed the guy who did it, and Tyrion, kind of makes a
still not saying it's Mandon Moore.
Right.
He hasn't outed that.
Do you think if there was any way for Tyrion to, well, I know who it was. There were multiple, and just saying, elusively, I have multiple witnesses who survived who also can confirm who this person is. Do you think he could have convinced Tywin that?
Because right now Tyrion's looking at the wrong suspect. He thinks it's Cersei, and it's not Cersei at all.
Right.
It was Joffrey who sent him to make sure Tyrion didn't leave the battlefield. And so, no, because he would be directing it at Cersei, and I don't think Tywin is going to listen to any inner house bullshit of she tried to kill me.
Right, over not to Cersei.
I don't fucking care. You two need to stop your shit is basically where it would come down to.
And so right before the mentioning of him saying he wants gratitude and the mummers and monkeys applause, he says, now what about Littlefinger? I heard you were given, he gave him Harrenhal, and Tywin's like, yeah, it's a fucking empty title. Roose Bolton holds it anyway right now, so who gives a fuck? And Tyrion he's on it here, man. He's like, it just doesn't make sense. Littlefinger is exalted for it. He requested it from you. He doesn't want this kind of shit for no reason.
Yeah.
He would not just be taking it knowing that it's a shithole that's not going to get him anything.
Unless he had a gain further in the future.
Right.
And I also important to note that this whole talk, Tywin has been basically trying to get Tyrion out of here to get back to his important letters, because sometimes it is pens and quills that win wars other than swords and spears. So,
yeah,
letters to the phrase beginning here.
And this is also kind of when he goes into what you had mostly covered earlier, when Tyrion's like, well, I did fucking win you, save this goddamn city. And Tywin's like, dude, most of the people seem to think it was my attack that turned the tides in the battle.
And it was Cersei who told the pyromancers to begin making wildfire.
Right. And not to mention Lords Tyrell, Rowan, Redwine, and Tarly fought nobly. And now all those things, I don't know about the wildfire, but like those 4 lords, I bet they did fight pretty noble. Like Tyrion, they do kind of deserve their credit as well, even if they were a bit late compared to you in the battle and didn't see as much. But
no one denies the part you played. The chain was a clever stroke, and the Dornish alliance was genius.
Yeah, and so then we get this awesome
Myrcella has made it safely. Ares Oakheart writes that she's taken to Arianne, and she is infatuated with Prince Trystane. I really didn't like giving them a hostage, but that couldn't be avoided. I understand that. However, I'm also worried about what else they're going to want. Tyrion's like, well, we gave him a seat on the council. Like, that's not that. And Tywin's like, you also promised them vengeance. And that's where it's at.
And then now we see the difference between Tyrion and Tywin. Tywin says, no, I offered them justice. And they begin the talk of Tywin saying, it's sometimes necessary for a lord or a noble to have a beast that they can unleash, not unlike your clansmen or your Sir Bronn of the Blackwater.
Yeah, and Tyrion says, well, they're a dime a dozen, so have you grown so fond of this Sir Gregor that you can't give him over to the Dornish? And Tywin's like, actually, you know what? I will think on what you said, because you're right, there is a dog in every alley ready to go, but now I'll think on it.
Right. He gets ready to turn and walk away and has thoughts, but before that, I forget what I was going to say about it anyway. So yeah, he turns to...
A dog in every alley? No?
Yeah, something like
Basically
that.
Finding a new beast.
It was that. I just think it's super interesting to think of the similarities between the Mountain, Gregor Clegane, and Sir Bronn of the Blackwater. And like how similar they really can be in certain ways. And so just that comparison.
I think it's interesting Tywin saying that every High Lord could make use of a monster, and then just knowing that Tywin's current monster becomes Cersei's literal monster.
Yeah.
And
then the one compliment that Tywin did give Tyrion this whole time is your alliance thing was fucking clever.
Well, that was good. The Dornish alliance was very well thought out, right? The only thing he regretted was giving them the hostage, but that could not be avoided in that circumstance. And Tyrion points out, we're going to have a hostage because we have their council.
Now, they do talk. It seems like are they under the impression that Doran's coming to hold that?
Well, that was the
plan
invite.
Right.
Yeah, Oberyn is not a part of it. It's a monkey wrench. Fuck yes.
Yes.
So Tyrion stands to leave, and later he would regret turning and saying this to his father, but he turns and says what he wants is Casterly Rock. And Tywin steeples his hands and is just looking at him and says Casterly Rock, and we get the description of his cold green eyes flecked with gold, and then he just says never. And Tyrion again would come to regret he should have just walked out the door, he thinks.
Yeah, because this is where he breaks down.
And this is where we get that he's too angry. He knows logically, just leave. Like, just don't engage this conversation with this boomer fucking cunt and go leave. But instead, he gets too hot-headed and he says, why? Why do I not deserve Casterly Rock, father? And we get one of Charles Dance's best acted scenes in the show. You ask that? You who killed your mother to come into the world?
Dude, and yeah, it's just the most savage, brutal parenting
he lays into him.
You ever will see. Basically, it's what we expect happened to Samwell Tarly from Randall in his childhood. Just this brutal, you fucking killed your mother by being born. So, obviously...
Then he called, you're tiny, you're half a bit, you're a dwarf, you're envious and full of spite, you fuck whores, you're gross.
So he really does kind of give this this description of an imp, of this, like, he is like, while people do whisper imp, nobody feels that
Tywin views him as a little goblinoid creature running around, and he says, you know, the laws of men make it so that you can wear my colors and my family's sigil, the sigil of my father and my father's father, but you fucking waddle around and you shame it to Tywin. That's what he's with these all these whores he's laying with is just making a mockery of.
And
the gods have tried to teach me humility by letting you walk around wearing mine, and that's what it is to Tywin. Tyrion is a lesson in humility for him, and that how is that ever going to make a healthy parental relationship?
And so it finally lands on, if he had given Casterly Rock to Tyrion, it would just end up his fucking whorehouse.
Well, because he brings up all the whores. He asks after Shay, the one at the Green Fork. He asks
what about that
the
one
you married, and Tyrion defiantly says Tysha, and then Elijah. And he says, I'll not let you turn Casterly Rock into your... And it says, the dawn broke for Tyrion. And he goes, oh, so Cersei told you about Elijah, and then it hits him even further.
Tywin that
you had Elijah whipped, and he says, I am told, your sister told me that you had made threats on my grandsons. Did she lie? And he was ice cold at this. And Tyrion says, I made some threats to keep Cersei in line and make sure that Elijah wasn't mistreated by the Kettle Blacks. And I loved Tywin's response. He said, to save a whore's virtue, you threatened your own house, your own kin. Is that the way of it?
Now, then Tyrion kind of starts almost fumbling. Like, he's like, Tommen, like, look at him. It's Tommen. Like, he's the sweetest boy. I would never hurt Tommen, which, again, I don't think that he would have.
I don't either.
Because of the hesitation. Like, he was so relieved that Cersei had him back that he wasn't going to be forced.
And he doesn't even really want to hurt Joffrey. Like, he thinks Joffrey deserves a good couple fucking smacks upside the head, but who doesn't? He doesn't want to beat the kid to a bloody pulp. And he tells Tywin, if you really want to fucking start whipping people, start with Joffrey. Like, he's the one who could use a good fucking ass kicking.
And he says, because I would never hurt Tywin. Tommen is my own blood. And Tywin is like, as was your mother. He killed her, though, had no problem ripping her apart, and then he stands up.
Of course he
Holy fucking shit, he
like
stands
he could
up.
get any bigger.
Dude, he's fucking like Batman. Like he stands in the shadow, like, spreads behind him.
I don't understand how Martin manages to write this character in such
it says
a big
he
way.
rises super fast, scares the shit out of Tyrion, and just towers over him.
Speak no more of your rights to Casterly Rock. You will have a reward, but it will be one I deem suitable. And make no mistake, this is the last I will suffer of you to bring shame to House Lannister. The next whore I find in your bed, I'll hang.
Yeah, that's a fun thing.
Yeah.
Not that he's hanging whores, but the fact that the next whore that he finds in his bed is also going to end up in Tywin's bed, and she gets choked to death by Tyrion.
Yeah.
And
I mean, it's prophetic in a way, but the glimpse we get at Tywin, and that's the chapter's end there, but the glimpse we get at Tywin, I mean, it's all family for him. It's the legacy. It's not family, it's legacy. It isn't caring about the people of your family and their wants and wishes. It's caring about the name House Lannister. Nothing more than that. It's not Tywin, Jaime, and Cersei. I think there is affection for Jaime. I think there is a smidgen for Cersei and none for Tyrion.
Right.
But I think over all three of them, it's House Lannister, and he would gladly sell them off, trade them off, kill them off, do whatever.
And that's where I think the smidgen comes in for Cersei. He likes to be able to have that political peace. He had this girl,
the most beautiful woman in the Seven Kingdoms at one point.
Whereas, and Aerys Targaryen had screwed Tywin by naming Jaime to the Kingsguard because he knew that Tywin Lannister has the most powerful family because of the money, because he has the most handsome and capable son in the country, and the most beautiful and powerful daughter. Like, they can marry her off to a fucking Stark. They control the fucking North. Get Jaime in King's Landing to a fucking Targaryen.
Right. Tywin had way too much power with his children, and then that's the twist on it, is where Tyrion was thrown in to teach him humility, and that's the way Tywin views his youngest son, and therefore that's always just going to be a fucking shit show of resentment and...
Yeah, it's wild.
It's fucked.
So that's the chapter. I think that's going to be about it, and then we'll head over into our small council.
It's just time, Simba.
Some inductees, read some emails, get a little more off topic, as we are wont to do. We'll catch you over there. All right, Brotherhood. Did you guys get a drink? Did you get a snacky do?
You go pee-pee?
Yeah, go pee-pee.
Wash your hands.
Make sure you wash your hands, even if you're not going pee-pee. Like, always wash your hands anytime you touch and shit, because, there's a fucking pandemic,
So, that was a hell of a chapter.
Yo, it was a heavy chapter. Because it was, like, broken into, like, those two sections. The fucking his room beforehand, and then the Tywin meeting. And both of them had their weights, and so it was really cool because you got to see two different sides. Like, you got to see this pissed off, angry Tyrion,
and then Tyrion on the ropes,
and then Tywin had him backed up.
So who's your inductee?
I think it's such a hard one, man, because there's so many options in this. I think I'm gonna give mine to Jacelyn Bywater one last time.
Old Iron Hand.
He made a fucking stand, for the city again. Like, not that I guess most of the city does, because a lot of them are small folk and deserve it, but that's what he was looking out for, man. He's like, we're going to lose this shit, and these people are running because that little cunt king is taking off. No, like, let's turn the fuck around. Listen to me. I'm your boss. Arrow in my neck.
Yeah, he put himself in their path. Like, that's some brave shit.
Some heart shit. So he martyred himself, and he's done. And so, rest in peace, Jacelyn Bywater.
I mean, mine has to go to the man, the myth, the legend, Lord Tywin.
So,
because of the conversation they're having, but mainly when Tyrion is griping about who came to see him, and Tywin is basically like, yo, I did come to see you. I came to see you as often, he says, as Maester Balabar would allow, and said was necessary when you were critical. When you were dying, I came to see you. Cersei came to see you. And he's like, and then, like, later on it goes on, and he gets exasperated. He's like, Tyrion, Cersei's planning a royal wedding.
The wedding of the century.
I'm fighting a fucking war. What do you want? And it's just that was the most real family dynamic I had heard of, like, Tyrion being the sick one when everyone else is super busy, and they're like, "Oh, why isn't anyone here to kick?"
Yeah, it's that Home Alone.
We're not gonna fucking put everything on hold because you got the flu, little baby boo boo. Like,
right.
I mean, it's a lot more serious than that, but like, we did come to visit you. Tywin did come and see you, like,
and he did see it. He just didn't remember it was a fever dream. He thought,
right, yeah, and like, so yeah, don't be throwing shade. Like, Cersei's literally planning the wedding of the fucking centuries at the start of the century, and Tywin's planning is still a war and fighting a war. So, like, I just loved the exasperation of Tywin. Like, what the fuck do you want? Because we did come to see you. Chill. So
that was a good one. I want to talk about my inductee again real quick because I'm cooler than you. I just realized how cool it is that we just lost Jacelyn Bywater, and I know why. There can only be one. We lost one metal-handed man so that we can now gain a new one. And what a man he is.
What a man, what a man, what a man, what a man.
What a golden hand.
All right, so Nate's terrible inducting aside, we got some great ones from you guys, of course.
I'm pissed.
And so I'm pissed.
I am so pissed.
So first we're going to hear from Karen, and this is, drumroll please, the last inductee in Karen's first big grouping. So
holy hell.
Karen, again, thank you so much.
That means
for
we can open
us.
Your next one.
Right, now we can actually open that email. So for Tyrion 1, her inductee goes to Podrick Payne.
Yes.
He's so sweet and looks out for Tyrion and helps and killed the guy who was there to kill Tyrion. Podrick is always a good choice for the Brotherhood, I think. I think you're pretty fucking right on point there, Karen.
Yes.
Because Podrick is pretty great. And he got kind of shit on in this chapter. Tyrion was being pretty harsh, like...
And
then...
can I point out that he didn't get shit on all that bad, because one of my other favorite characters that's not Podrick Payne is Brienne of Tarth. And she shits on him hard.
But this
in a loving way.
This is the first time we see Tyrion, like, frustratedly being like, Pod, get the fuck in here. Where are you? Like, ordering him around.
Right,
and it was like, oh, damn. Oh, damn.
So our next...
Thank you, Karen.
Yes, thank you, Karen. Our next inductee comes across the sea from France. Julian. He says, hello, guys. Damn, that was an intense chapter. The final conversation between Tywin and Tyrion. Genius. I like how Tyrion seems to juggle between clever mistrust and impulsive frustration. I really like that description of that, Julian.
He's super impulsive when he turns and says, I want Casterly Rock. Why? Like,
Yep. And so making him take risks he knows he shouldn't.
Right.
Tywin is very imposing. He's imposing his shit.
We Americans.
Tywin is very imposing. Even reading, it feels like he fills the whole room by his presence. It does. Yeah. It's crazy. As for my inductee, it's going to be Marjorie.
Oh, hell yeah, Julian.
Yeah, no Adam, or Sir Bronn for me. Today it's Beauty I'm inducting. Fuck yeah, it is. They all love her both before they even saw her. She brings food and will be their queen, so she must be lovely and wonderful. Dreamy, isn't it? Viva Marjorie Tyrell, Valhai Gardeneris. Thank you, as always, Julian, for your wonderful take.
Roll credits. We're done with this podcast. We just got two of the best inductees we've ever had. Thank you guys both. I love Marjorie
Podrick
Tyrell,
and Marjorie Tyrell now.
And this is why. Like, everyone always gets like, it's weird that you like she brings food to the city. Like, anyone who's giving me free food,
fuck yeah.
You're fucking my queen.
Fuck yeah.
Queen of my heart, absolutely. So, Julian, Karen, thank you guys for writing in. If you would like to write in, like Karen and Julian did, we'd love to hear from you. We had a shout out.
We got another. So of course So we'll start by giving our email,
right?
Which is withoutmannersbrotherhood@gmail.com. So write in, let us know your inductees for the coming up chapters. Coming up chapter is going to be Davos 1.
Oh shit!
Davos is coming in early. And so that's pretty awesome because we only got, what was it, 3 or 4?
Yeah,
3 Davos chapters in the last book, and we had to wait like 20 fucking chapters before we got our first Davos
It's a short
chapter.
One. It's a little shorty, but
that's okay. So we've been getting a lot of course, comments on the YouTube.
Yeah,
Stephanie and I'm sorry, there's so many names and I can't recall them. But we've got some new subscribers as well. Corey is subscribing.
Corey.
Thank you for subscribing, Corey. We look forward to getting some inductees from you as well, hopefully.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you can find us on Facebook, facebook.com/Brotherhood Podcast. We're on Twitter. I'm there @MannersWithout. Zach is on there @Carstark92. We have our Patreon, patreon.com/WithoutManners. Gets you access to the private Facebook group. We are working on blocking out and recording chapters for the Night of the Seven Kingdoms.
Yes.
Patreon episodes, exclusive episodes that will be coming your way fairly soon.
We have a website.
It's www.brotherhoodwithout.com. And rate us, review us, subscribe. We're on Amazon Music. We're on fucking Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher. We're pretty much all over the place, man. It's pretty cool. Remember, we announced that we're getting some guests, and those guests, again, we want them on certain pivotal chapters, not just everyday run-of-the-mill chapters. So we want to kind of get into a swing, and then we're going to be dropping them. They're just going to be hitting you left and right, man. Just pa. But I think that's it for this episode. So what do you think? I think I just drooled, so I think, we better. Valor to Harris!
Peace!